The time we spent in England was concentrated in London. We did take 2 side trips out of the city. The first one was to Stratford-on-Avon to tour Shakespeare's hometown. Since neither Steve nor I had ever read or seen anything by the Bard, this trip was mostly lost on us. The other side trip was to Windsor Castle and Hampton Court. That was more like it. The keep in a castle was the last line of defense in the stronghold. I could easily sense the desperation of a retreat into the keep. The tourist sites around London held much fascination. The tour of the Tower of London was most impressive. This was my first introduction to King Henry VIII and the execution of Anne Boleyn. Although I have been back to London on a number of occasions, this trip afforded me the only chance to view the crown jewels. I had never been really aware of jewelry save the diamond on my mother's finger, so this display really impressed me. The orb, crown, and scepter opened my eyes to what real jewelry could be. On this trip, the Schuldenfrei family really didn't stop for souvenirs. To this day, I buy very little on vacation. My only purchases were 2 toys, one which was bought in England. This was a set of toy soldiers patterned on the horse-mounted household cavalry. For years afterwards, this troop of figurines sat on my dresser along with a bunch of model airplanes. Mom believed that they were only dust collectors, so when I was packed off to Blair Academy in the fall of 1959, the horse guard hit the trash. Steve also bought toy soldiers, but his were the traditional lead kind. He also got a toy cannon, which was to be the first of a collection of same. Meals were not much in Great Britain, as the English had yet to discover grand cuisine. After a few dinners of local fare, we discovered an Italian restaurant a block away from our hotel. Mom, Steve, and I frequented this establishment often. One exception to this routine was a meal we had at the Savoy with Mr. Simpson. Simmy, as he was known, was the head of the Macy buying office in London. Dad had arranged for him to take us out for a grand English feast. We were treated to a roast beef and Yorkshire pudding spread with all of the trimmings. Everything was just terrific, except for that English children's drink, ginger beer. It was too strong for my liking. After a week of doing the sights, we headed out to meet Dad in Paris. This time we flew from London to Paris. This short hop over the English Channel was my first airplane flight. I was awestruck by the concept of flight. To this day, I love to fly and look out the window as I do so. In spite of the fact that I practically lived on airliners during the 1970s, I never lost the thrill of flight. We landed at Le Bourget Airport in the northeast suburbs of Paris. Dad picked us up in a rented car in which we were to tour the continent over the next several weeks. We drove from the airport to the Scribe Hotel, where we were to spend almost a week touring the town. And what a grand hotel it was. Dad went first class on these digs. We had a 2-bedroom suite. It had a connecting parlor between the 2 rooms. The Scribe was just around the corner from the Paris Opera and very centrally located. Within a few blocks' walk was the Seine River, the Place de la Concorde, and the Louvre. For most of the time we were in the city, we kept our car parked and traveled either on foot or by the metro. This was my introduction to big-time art. We took a gallery tour of the Louvre with an English-speaking guide. This was the time before recorded gallery tours, so this is the only way our non-French-speaking family could make any sense out of the exhibition. Because it was a group tour, we only got to see a small fraction of the immense holdings. I must confess that Steve and I better enjoyed the physical sights more than the art museum. We were very impressed with the age of Notre Dame and enjoyed the climb to the top of the towers. We found great humor in the fact that during the Middle Ages, people set up booths of commerce in the great cathedral and even rode their horses into the huge edifice. It is interesting to note that commerce and religion mix in this manner in Japan today. The temple complex at Sensoji in the Asakusa district, has one such collection of retailers. The day we visited the Eiffel Tower, it was hot and hazy. It is not at all like this image I took of the site in 1965. To see all Paris at your feet was a wonderful thrill. The family stood in line for quite some time as the elevator wait was considerable. We went to the top and then back down. This is in contrast to what Pat and I did in August of 1990. We rode to the top in the late afternoon. Then we came back down to the premier étage, the lower crossing floor, bought a beer, and watched the sun set. There is hardly a more romantic setting in all of the world. This shot of Dad shows the haze as it really was that day. He is holding my Argus A4 camera as I am taking the picture with his 1939 Kodak camera. Yes, he was still using the camera that he bought at the World's Fair, although he was to buy his Nikon F in 1959. Also note that Dad is all dressed up. Like in New York, when the Schuldenfrei families toured a major city, we dressed for the occasion. And there were lots of other public buildings that captured our imagination. After a number of days in town, we headed out for 2 side trips by car. The first stop was the Palace of Versailles. I was struck by the scale of the place. Awe is the term that comes to mind, as I lack the historical background to really appreciate the meaning of the building and the things that took place here. While I was fairly well educated in U.S. history, and even knew a bit of English history, European history was unknown to me. One of the things that makes Versailles a poor palace visit is the lack of furniture. The French don't seem to really want to restore the place to its 18th century grandeur. Perhaps it is the politics of royalty. As you can guess from the expression on Steve's face, the day was hot and the gardens were boring. They only play the fountains once a month, and this was not the day.